Hello, this is Greg Allison, Green Greg's, coming to you on the 25th of August, 21. Time on deck is 18:06, 100 hours Central Daylight Time. And tonight I'll have a special guest, General Ken Chrosniak. And we're going to be talking about Afghanistan, what's going on there, and the risk to America due to all this stuff. The risk to the world. This isn't just a risk to America. The whole world is at risk due to what's happened, what's going down. So you need to be aware of that, because it's a proposition on my channel to help you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hide. So I'll bring you videos like this so you can be aware of what's happening, so you'll know to prepare and maybe how to prepare, what to expect. Because the worst thing you want to have happen when it hits the fan is for you to be caught in a state of shock. Where you're like, what's happening? If you can wrap your mind around it, you won't be shocked by it. So watch me to help you be prepared for those kind of things, but also to get prepared physically. I do a lot of videos about growing food. You need to do that. Buy your seeds. Check out my links to Shirley's Market. But you also need to know how to eat from the weeds and the trees outdoors. That helps. But you better right now be stocking up some food. And by the way, I do have a special. I got 25-year long lasting food here. It's freeze dried. This is real food. You can get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 2,000 calories a day. That'll make you a winner. This is go to prepwithgreg.com. Right now I'm running a special. You get $300 off a 3-month supply of this. It's an excellent deal, and you can get 25% off of 1 month supply. 3-month supply is 6 of these buckets. 6-month supply, excuse me, 3-month supply. A 1-month supply is 2 of these buckets. It's great deals. This is lightweight because it is freeze dried. You can store it. The kids can carry it. It's easy to carry, easy to store. It's hard to beat, and they have the widest selection of any other vendor available. You just can't beat My Patriot Supply for that kind of stuff. Just click the My Patriot Supply logo. Once you go to prepwithgreg.com. It takes you to the website, a whole bunch of prepping supplies. Check it out. So, all right, Ken Chrosniak, guys. General Ken Chrosniak is an excellent patriot. He has been to 2 of my power grid defense conferences. He's really been a strong supporter in power grid defense. And we're going to do an interview tomorrow. We're going to do a show tomorrow. We'll probably record that one and post it, because he's got a 95-page PowerPoint presentation on power grid defense. It'll knock your socks off. And General Chrosniak, guys, look, if any of you been in the Army before, you'll know that you don't call a sergeant sir, because they'll tell you real fast, I'm not a sir, I work for a living. Well, Ken's also worked for a living. He before he was an officer, he was enlisted. So he knows what it's like to work for a living. Not only that, he still works. Ken, you're still an active firefighter, right?
Yes.
So
and with my ambulance company also.
Yeah, there you go. So Ken is an emergency provider. He's not only been enlisted, rose to the ranks of general in the officer corps, and he's got quite a record, but he works real hard to help ensure that our power grid will be secure. Ken is a real patriot, a real hero, and gosh, he's got an ambulance corps. He's firefighting. He's an EMA guy. He's out there doing everything he can to help make sure that our nation and community that he lives in is well set. I mean, it's hard to beat a gentleman like Ken. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Ken Chrosniak. Ken, tell us just a little bit more about yourself before we get into this topic tonight.
Oh, just welcome to everybody. I always enjoy talking with you, Greg. I was enamored with you the very first time I was down there. At NASA, when you invited me down to talk to a lot of the engineers there and the emergency providers and those that had no idea what the hell was going on at all with the electric grid many years ago. And I was always impressed with the one conversation we had when you first invited me down there to talk about the electric grid with Dr. Peter Pry, and Hank Cooper, and some brilliant people. George Baker, doesn't get better than that. And I remember that your letter or an email to me said, we finally figured out that we ain't going to be able to explore space. We ain't got no electricity. But that's the prelude for tomorrow, which is just about the way it is. You spoke it. I remember I wish I would have kept a copy of that email, because that would have been great. But no, I just enjoyed. I usually don't talk about myself very much. I really don't. But I'm always proud of saying I have 5 DD-214s, which I don't think a lot of people have that. But I was the most amazing time out of my just shy of 38 years was when I was retired. When I was retired here at the War College, I was as an instructor in 1998, and I was recalled to active duty right after 9/11, one of the first 12. I was a colonel then, and I was sent to the Joint Chiefs of Staff to write the National Military Strategic Plan for the War on Terror, or to help do that. I wrote the admin log order to it. It took about a year, and a very detailed plan, not unlike what's going on in Afghanistan, the withdrawal. Anyway, and then I was sent home I was asked to go to Iraq in command, and I was at the embassy for a little over a month, and then they asked me to command at Abu Ghraib prison or detention facility, they like to call it. And then I was home for a year, and then I got recalled again with the counter sniper, counter kidnapping, and counter IED task force in the Army Operations Center at the Pentagon. So I know plans and operations pretty well. And I do. And I don't mean to talk about myself, but I do. I have the ability to look about the 20, 30,000 foot level, having been enlisted and commissioned military police, field artillery with a nuclear howitzer battalion, a brigade, the chemical corps twice, so I know nuclear hazards very well, and quartermaster and combat engineer. And that's why I was called up to work with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I can look at a war plan, which Rumsfeld had us doing when I was on my second year on the Joint Chiefs of Staff. We had about 63 war plans. We reduced them to, I think, between 10 and 20. I forgot how many we actually reduced it to, because most of them were like standing operating procedures. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I can look at a plan, and especially a good planning worst case situation scenario, and I look at what is going on in Afghanistan, and I think initially it was a good plan. A lot of perfume princess, planned it, and that's my David Hackworth, who I used to converse with every so often, coming out of me. He was one of my idols, still is, died way ahead of time. And I look at the withdrawal plan that President Trump had purview over, his administration had purview over, and the Pentagon and the intelligence community and other National Security Council, NSA, CIA, and so on. And it was pretty good. It was predicated on a very timely withdrawal by a date, and not leaving all that equipment behind. It'd be pretty short and sweet. I know time is of the essence with you right now. What happened right now was a very politically motivated debacle, ecstasy of fumbling in this administration, no matter who would have taken it, whether it's finishes out with Biden or not, or whatever. But it was an intelligence community, especially on the
ecstasy of bumbling.
An ecstasy of fumbling. Yes,
wow.
Just I could a CF too, but I won't explain what that CF means. But I blame, and I worked with General Mark Milley in Afghanistan. No, excuse me, in Baghdad, or at Abu Ghraib. One of my unit, well, we were hit pretty badly, and I lost about a third of my Marine company, Echo 210 Marines, wonderful bunch of young men. And Mark Milley came in with his 2nd Brigade infantry company to replace my wounded military, Marine company. And we worked together for about 2 weeks. And I learned a lot from him because he's an infantryman. I learned stand twos. I knew a lot of infantry tactics that were refreshing to me that as a combat engineer, I didn't know. So he was very, very exacting and so on. It was very, very good. I was ready for any other significant attacks, which, well, didn't have to wait too long. They came. Anyway, he helped in many ways to keep us safe. But the military planning that the Joint Staff did, the J2, which is intelligence, the J3, which is operations, the J5, which is plans, they didn't see this coming. Their intel, especially with the CIA, I'd rather have the Mossad in there doing. I think their intelligence would be a hell of a lot better than the CIA's. And I'm not pointing blame specifically at them. It was politically motivated, and you can't have that. You had that date, 31 August. You wanted to be you wanted to be risen from the dead again and say everything's fine by September 11th. Well, September 11th is going to be a triumph for the Taliban. I have other names for them, but I won't say them. The Taliban, because this right now, when you get, I have the list of equipment, and if I tried to find it right now on my machine, I wouldn't be able to see it, but I looked through it. There's like 4,000 Humvees, several hundred, 800 MRAPs, an ungodly amount of ammunition, 4 or 5 C-130s, Tornado, jet aircraft, millions of rounds of ammunition, 20,000 grenades, and I can go right on down the line. But what really gets to me are 16,000 plus night observation devices, nods, because we own the night. Ask any wonderful of our beautiful treasure of our youth, special forces and Delta and Rangers and so on, and SEALs and so on. We own the night. We can kill them at night, offensively or defensively. Now they have it. And you're going to see that same equipment. Well, a lot of it's going to Pakistan because Pakistan funds the Taliban and funds Al-Qaeda. No real shock to a lot of military people. Back in 9/11, George Bush linked at the hip with Musharraf. And we should have linked it more at the hip with India, because even though Pakistan has nuclear, so does India. We would have had better friends with our own like thinkers and not Islamists. So a lot of equipment is being disassembled and sent down to Pakistan, which not that many Americans probably know about. And also that equipment right now, all of that ungodly amount of equipment, it's just fascinating. 8,000 machine guns. I don't know how many you won't see them carry AK-47s anymore because they're worthless for direct fire. Great assault weapons, but they're worthless for direct fire, even though they sound real nice. You're going to see that attacking Israel shortly. The Palestinians are going to have it. You're going to see it in Syria. You're going to see it in many other nations. Now, China has met with the Taliban about last Thursday, and well, so is our CIA. Well, actually, the Taliban is not an enemy anymore. They've really toned it down. They're adversarial or something like that. I think the Biden administration says. And by the way, it's not the Biden, it's the Biden administration, but I don't know who's pulling the strings, but I agree with this one British general who commanded Afghan forces for the British Army. He said that the president is our commander in chief, and he should be court-martialed for due diligence, for just criminal negligence of not doing enough intelligence work and pulling out of Afghanistan and leaving all of those Americans behind. Now, to back that up more, going back to what I said about China, I'm throwing some flash out right now. I'll bring it all together. China has already they're making a compact with the Taliban right now, because the Taliban rules Afghanistan. They're after the millennium and some other a lot of rare earth minerals and gold, and so there's an ungodly amount of stuff there. But when they come into the nation, they're not going to come in and try to win the hearts and minds of the people. They're going to come in to be a lot worse than we were, or the Russians before us, or the British back in the 1880s. And it will be a whole revelation for them. The compact that they made with the Taliban is that they'll keep their inner workings of any kind of takeover, any kind of trouble from the Muslims or from the Islamists within China. And I'm sure that the Taliban agreed to that. But they're going to find out what force on force really is. But the other part of that is the threat not only to us. It's I think it was the British actually condemned. They keep on saying Biden. He's not in charge. The Biden administration as contemptible. They actually had a formal condemnation of him. So did the Germans. They said this is the worst debacle to come by from NATO ever, because they're completely they've lost relevance right now, because we've had the French, German, British, American, and some other segment of nations in there, fighting. And what's really difficult about the Middle East is that if you project power like President Trump did, like even at the NATO summit, a lot of the other nations leaders were like little ducklings behind President Trump. He had a persona, and he did, and that's in a gravitas, as the Democrats would say. and he led by power. That's why he went one-on-one with North Korea. He went one-on-one with China, Russia, the NATO saying, pay up what you're due. And he was fantastic. We don't have that power in the Middle East anymore, and you're going to see the Middle East explode. You're just going to see it all over because they have. Okay, and going back to the great other planning that the war planners right now in Taiwan. I was estimating, in fact, on the David Bellavia show, my friend, Medal of Honor winner, he announced that he thinks it'll take about a week before China attacks Taiwan. What have they got to lose? I would attack Taiwan. Who's going to stop them? We don't. They have the hegemony now. We soon will. And I'm talking about not only the Afghanistan. I'll get around to how they'll boost it even more. But they're boosting the prestige of the Taliban. They're boosting the prestige of anyone that will fight against the evil empire of the United States and the allies in the West, NATO and the UNSAs. So what are we telling our allies? NATO, UNSAs, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United States, England. Do you want to be America? Do you want America as an ally? No. Are they going to come and rescue and help Israel? Not under the Biden administration.
England is already asking that question. Ken.
Yeah.
They're already saying, why do we want to be America's ally? They've already said it. They've already asked it. So,
Well, they say no worse friend and enemy. Well, I forgot it, but
we're causing them to leave a lot of their people behind there in Afghanistan. I mean, what kind of crap is that? I mean, you pull the troops out and then you try to pull the people out. I mean, that's kind of backwards. I mean, you've been in planning. I mean, what is that? That's no plan. That's just haphazard. You should pull the people out, then pull the troops out.
Yeah, this is but what I'm trying to say within America right now, I believe that they're going to completely group their thinking about doing something quite large, even bigger than 9/11, and they'll have the recruits because this is a fantastic recruiting tool. Can you imagine right now? Here, it's a better recruiting tool than we've seen here in the United States, especially for the CIA and even in the military. Well, our military, I should say, that we do, and I know for certain because the only reason I mentioned Iraq and my time in Baghdad, my most precious time was after I was retired and I got recalled twice for another 4.5 years of active duty, is that I saw firsthand these soldiers working under adverse conditions and really performing wonderfully. I mean, now I look at the soldiers downrange now in that VUCA environment, the volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environment. They have no idea what the hell's going on. By the way, the Rangers should have gone in and secured the airfield anyway. That was piss poor prior planning. That's what those young, beautiful men are used to doing, and they would have done it because you change the rules of engagement too, and you're not there to win the hearts and minds of the Taliban.
Well, hey, Ken, I made a point in my video I did last night and posted earlier today. It's like, we got the Rangers that can secure the airfield. We got the Delta Force that's trained and developed for pulling out hostages and civilians. We've got the Green Beret. We got the SEAL team. Why weren't we flying these guys in on the aircraft before we started pulling people out? I mean, the aircraft that we sent over to bring civilians back should have been taking them over. We should have beefed up and got the civilians out and then pulled back the military. But no, we went backwards. We started pulling military out. Then we got a bunch of people out there. But, they can't even get to the airport because the Taliban's got the airport sealed off outside and they can't even get to it. And I've seen reports lately of some of these people are actually getting injured by the Taliban, the heads bashed and things like that. So
I can't even imagine right now. I'm not a civil affairs type. I never probably could be, but it's horrible. And I don't believe, I question everything that this administration is putting out, especially the brilliant press secretary they have. But there's no 80,000 refugees, any 80,000 Afghans coming into the country so far. One of the planes left with about 160 some people. Yeah, it's crazy even thinking about it. There are Americans in country right now, in downrange, in that country, that are suffering, that are being beaten, raped, tortured, killed. And look at the British. Some of the other countries got their people out, or getting a majority of the people out, or they say they're getting the people out. There's ways that you can do that. It's just with pure might force. We have enough troops over there to do that, to be able to. And I'm not second guessing the commanders because my heart goes out to them. I look at the young troops, that one special operator Marine, with a definitely unauthorized beard and everything, holding a baby that was thrown up to him. Even then, some of the babies are just so they can be saved, and he's smiling and he's enjoying it. But these Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, they're going to be going through the tortures of hell, because the mental strain on them going into an operation like that is going to be very telling. I actually feel for those troops downrange right now. They're in very dangerous territory. But if you're going to let loose the dogs, you may as well just go over to try to rescue Americans. But it's finding out where they live. And when the Department of Defense was asked by some unnamed reporter, why don't you know how many Americans are in country? It's not their job to know. It's up to the errant Department of State to know. They should know where many of the people are in that country. They should have, because they reported the embassy, or they're supposed to, and say that they're in country and where they'll probably be traveling through, whether they're going to go hiking off to Iran or whatever stupid thing you might be doing as a crazy American, or whether you're working with a contractor who is responsible to get you out of country also, whether it's KBR, no matter who is in that money making business. But no, the thing that worries me more is just the effect on the allies and the world. But there's also one other aspect of what's going on right now. And probably the thing that I'm most upset about is that getting involved without any kind of retro, and by the way, retreat or withdrawal is usually the most dangerous. If you're going into an offensive operation, you expect some turbulence on both your flanks. You don't expect turbulence coming at danger in the back. You know that there's problems up ahead of the objective. When you go through a withdrawal, you got to cover all 4 areas of attack, and that's dangerous. But this should have been planned out you always plan for the worst case situation, and they did a piss poor planning. I don't care, and I know a lot of the planners. At the Pentagon, I knew they worked their tail off, and I'm sure that there's a lot of young Iron Majors out there, PowerPoint Rangers, giving briefings, and Lieutenant Colonels and Colonels saying, "What the hell is going on, General Milley?" And then when you get, not just because of Afghanistan, but also the slap in the face to all the Gold Star mothers and fathers out there and families, and peeing on the graves of the dead soldiers that died and lost limbs and so on. What I'm trying to say is, right now, most veterans, there's a suicide rate of 22 a day. I think that was the going number. It's got to be way up there now, because they've lost faith. They've lost faith in the U.S. military and the U.S. government because of the commander-in-chief, who has done a significant harm. And by Rice, that one British colonel that said he is actually subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice also for dereliction of duty and faulty intelligence. But he is a good foreign relations planner. He was very instrumental in helping President Obama give $144 billion to Iran through the Swiss bank. But was it 144 billion or million?
Oh my God!
They always wondered why President Trump couldn't get a measly $10 billion or whatever it was. He should have gone to the same repository of money and so on that Obama did, that sent it over in greenback on pallets that went into Iran. But go to the same place, and we would have had to worry about the southern border. But I'm bouncing around because I'm so frustrated. Is that the gold? I'm just feeling so bad for them, and it's only going to get worse. yeah, strength prevails in the Middle East. That's all they understand. That is literally all they understand. You know, there's no medical schools in Kabul, or if there are, I don't want to have my appendix taken out by one of them. You know, they're Persians. They think differently than we do. Same thing with the Iranians. The closer to our way of thinking somewhat is Iraq. With Arab, they're somewhat more closer to us. In fact, I believe the only positive point of this is I really believe that Egypt will still stand with Israel. And I believe Saudi Arabia will too. We'll have to see how that works out, but we have dangerous times ahead of us. We got another 3.5 years of this circus. And I'm not being political, am I? No, it's not politics. But I'm just so upset. That's when you mentioned it. I want to do the live interview. I said, yes. I want to give my own thoughts because you always plan for the worst case situation. That'll go over to tomorrow's discussion with you also about the electric grid.
Yeah, we're going to do another program tomorrow, one on the electric grid.
Yeah, but anyway, what area of those? I think I tried to capture. You said the effect on America right at the very beginning of our talk, and I put out so much flash on different areas that enough to people run down that rabbit hole. But here's the other one: is that a good friend of mine of another group that I belonged to was an FAA inspector, and back in Logan Airport area, he's from Boston. Well, Brian Sullivan. He's a brilliant young man. He'd be on the radio in Washington tomorrow. He's doing an interview. And he works closely with all of us, Peter Pry and David Stuckenberg, close people. Anyway, he stated that 95%, we were completely off guard. Agents were going through with weapons on them on the very same day, that very same time period that the enemy was getting into those planes and making the World Trade Center the parking lot. And he said it's the same way right now. That people that are testing it and getting through. 95% of the agents going through with weapons are not tagged, are not caught. And that's just the agents going through on a sporadic basis. That's not a good thing. And I don't think they'll actually waste their time with that. There's so many other avenues, even on the southern border right now, like Tony Schaefer and many others have stated. There's Quds Force. The Quds Force and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps that are infiltrating and have been for years, and they speak perfect Spanish. They actually, sort of look Mexican, and they come up along with the MS-13. And these people are joining cells. We have them all over the United States. I'm thinking about maybe physical attack, but some other cyber attacks and so on. There's so many other areas that they're recruiting for people. Remember how they recruited so many Americans to join their crazy philosophy of life. Yeah, but my other main worry is our friends in Israel. I know that the the Hamas and the Palestinians are going to be up armored, as we call it, and they'll have modern, sophisticated weapons, including artillery. 76,000 vehicles, 76,000 vehicles, from little Toyota trucks up to three C-130s. They've got
how many vehicles? 76,000 vehicles?
76,000.
Good Lord, that many?
Yes.
Holy smoke!
They got. I already mentioned 20,000 grenades, but they've got an awful lot of small arms. There's an amazing amount. They've got saws, squad automatic weapons, a lot of them. If I tried to pull up I have a whole list. I'll send you the list because I think you should have it. I sent it out to a lot of people, and I forgot to put your address on it.
I grabbed a partial list off of an article that only includes like small arms stuff, and it talked about 2,000,000 7.62 bullets, and that's for the AKs, in case anybody don't know. And they got, they got the A-29 light aircraft, attack aircraft, and they got 100,000 70-millimeter rockets, which they can just saturate areas with for basically shredding people. 61,000 40-millimeter high explosive rounds have fallen into Taliban hands from the allocated training camps. So they already have plenty, I guess, up from that. And they got 4.72 million, 5.56. It says blank cartridges. I don't know what that blank. So what is that, training?
Training.
But they, we know they got a whole lot of live stuff too. So that was just a partial list. It wasn't a good list. We know they got Black Hawk helicopters. We know they got, and I've heard there's video of them flying the helicopters. So that kind of surprised me. So they actually have people that know how to fly this stuff and use it. They got armored vehicles. The night vision goggles really gets me because that is how we've always dominated the battles, was we owned the night. Now we just gave the night to everybody else. So that's probably one of the most horrific things. And also here, they got some very good scopes, some really good scopes for all these weapons that we've used in high precision fighting. I don't know, Ken. So you talked about these guys slipping over here. Trying to appear as if there were Mexicans coming across the southern border. Our southern border is wide open. I believe you could drive a whole regiment across there and nobody hardly notice it.
It's just insane. But here's on a personal note here. I just drove several hundred miles round trip up to Western New York, and anyway, from here. And as I'm driving down this main highway, some of it's almost like a little super highway, Route 15, we call it. And I'm looking out, and again, I was actually trying to be completely unbiased and apolitical. And I see Trump signs everywhere on the barns. I see flags. I see F. Biden's on the back of the vehicles, but I didn't see one Biden sign. And I sent an email out to a lot of my friends just a couple of hours ago. I said, why aren't one of them is he hates President Trump. I'm making this political because it is. The whole Afghan thing is the preemption of it. Just to be the star saying, I got everybody out of Afghanistan on September 11th because we had them attack us. Well, they did with Saudi Arabia and all the others, but I won't go there. There's a training spot, launch pad. But I said, why don't you put your Biden sign out in the lawn so we know who to thank for this debacle that you've gotten us into? Why don't you put the sign back on your front lawn? They don't have the stones to do that. They don't have the stones to do that. Yeah, and I don't see any, even around my area, on both sides of me. They're good people, decent people, but they're them. And they don't have the best interest of the country at heart. Just because he sends bad tweets and he doesn't talk so well. Well, I guess I'm very pro-Trump. I briefed him. I had the pleasure of briefing him, so I knew the man had the best interest of the country at heart. There's no doubt about it. And you don't hear him. You won't hear Biden say, "What does it all matter?" Does that sound familiar? When Hillary Clinton said that after Benghazi.
Oh yeah.
This is making Benghazi look like a walk on the beach. No disrespect to those beautiful people that fought their way there, but this is going to be in Saigon. I worked at the War College with a gentleman he wasn't in that chopper, but he wasn't really. They weren't really the last Americans out of the country. He was a colonel retired, and he was still there on ground. And you don't believe everything the news tells you. Anyway, he's still haunted by that. And this is with troops in contact. Those troops are in contact right now. And like even David De La Villa stated to me, a good infantryman, Medal of Honor, he said, redo the rules of engagements here. And I think we already killed a couple of them that just got in our way. They raised their weapons towards us or something like that. And of course, you engage them and go on out, and by the best records you can, find where the Americans are and the interpreters and anybody else that can be, because it's just a matter of time. There, many of them are you will never hear from again. And saying that they brought 80,000 back. With the one plane load had mostly all men in it, all military age. Oh well, at least we're getting them out of the country. It reminds me of the people coming across the border and so on our southern border that definitely, I don't know where they got their cell phones charged and so on, but they're all military age, and maybe they got their barbells in a wagon behind it because they're all in great shape. They look like Spetsnaz. They look like special forces guys. But here I'm getting off the subject. We're in a world of hurt right now, and I'm trying to keep some semblance of
All right, Ken, here's some things I worry about. I worry about a lot of these weapons going to China and Russia and getting reverse engineered. But I also am concerned that some of this may get shipped down to Venezuela and then find its way back up, heading in our direction in general. Now, you and I worry about things like grid down and what all might happen if the grid goes down. I want to show you some video here. It's kind of shocking, Ken. I want to share a video about what the drug cartels in Mexico have available to them. These guys are so armed that it's mind-boggling. Ken, just let me share this. Now, this is a piece from RT, which everybody knows is Russian news media, and they were really trying to talk about what. Oh, wrong tab there. What happens if we have a conflict between Mexican cartels and Chicago gangs? Well, I think they really have more in mind than that. I wouldn't be, they're not really thinking. I mean, these Mexican cartels are so well armed. I think they could take over military bases in a grid down situation here in the United States. So this is what concerns me, that if we have a grid down, that China may be backing these guys, and some of that stuff coming up, if some of that equipment comes back up, that they can add to this inventory, it's going to be, they're already mind-boggling. Watch this, Ken, what all these guys have.
Yeah.
Let's watch this. I don't get a strike here, but we'll talk through it, and then we have to skip around in it. Guys, these are armored vehicles. I mean, just look at this, guys. Here's how we're going to do this. These are armored vehicles here. They are highly armored, and they got the special, probably bulletproof glass on them. Some of it maybe like periscope arrangements. I'm going to skip around in here just so I don't get a strike with these guys. These individuals are highly armed with body armor. They got weaponry at the yin yang. Oh yeah, that was periscopes on the side there of that. Yeah, I think those are periscope windows, so you can't shoot in. So these vehicles are just go on and on. They're highly armed. Let me just play this. Oh yeah, they have the best scopes. I mean, they got top-notch equipment. They've taken civilian trucks and armored them. Look at these guys. These guys are highly equipped. This is a drug cartel, people. This is not an army per se. This is not an official army. But I bet the Mexican army is not this well equipped. Now, these trucks do have rubber tires. I mean, they got certain weaknesses to them. They've got some lights on them and things that are reflective, which they shouldn't have in a combat situation. They would probably tape them over, as we were trained to do in the army. Here, they got little boxes on top to shoot from. And it just goes on and on. This is a long convoy. I'm gonna just skip ahead a few places. This is an army. This is not, and they are a very well equipped army. Steve, we've been hoping our domestic militias might defend us if we got attacked by such a group like this. But guys, they would be hard pressed to face this.
Yeah.
What is this back? Is that a hatch or is that something else? What is that? What is that piece up there? Just a hatch. I mean, this goes on and on and on and on. I'll just play some more. And this is just one, guys. They got more than this. I'm skipping ahead because I don't want to strike for showing this, and I might still get one. So I'm not playing any sound off of it. And we're just skipping ahead and talking, but we're doing this for commentary. This is from RT, shocking footage of Mexico's cartel army. Look at that. We're talking, that looks like an M60, guys, right there. That's and look at these belt-fed crew-served weapons these guys are carrying around. This is some amazing firepower. Yeah. Fire positions on these trucks. All right, so that's all I'm going to show out of that video. But that is just, And here's others that are, dressed differently, equipped different. Yeah, that's a M2. Looks like a 50 caliber right there. Machine gun. Yeah, I've worked on this M2 machine gun, small deuce. Now this is the Chicago games. Yeah, they don't compare to that. But I don't think this is about Chicago games versus, well, that's much other commentary in there. Let me stop that share. Ken?
Yes.
If we had a grid down situation, and here's the thing, I would think that if China wanted to attack Taiwan, they'd probably want to take our grid out. Now, tell me, Ken, how well is our military bases situated if we lose the civilian power grid? You're a general, you tell me.
Well, they have some hardening / protection of their equipment, but ultimately the power going in to any military installation is supplied by the civilian source. 100% of civilians are supplied by coal, wind, solar, natural gas, nuclear, hydro, but so is even Cheyenne Mountain. It's underground. Eventually, well, they are powered. Cheyenne Mountain.
They get external power from the civilian grid. You got to be kidding me.
I believe they do, but they have emergency generation that can come in instantly, right away, at like a good, extra diesel generator, EDGs. But let me follow my train here. What does emergency diesel generators run on?
Diesel fuel.
Yes.
They be trucked in, and when the grid goes down, you can't pump fuel. They won't get any more. That's it.
They won't get any more. They probably have about, a place like that probably has several days to a week days of supplies on hand, where the nuclear power plants have at best 7 days nuclear diesel generators. Same thing with airports, hospitals, police stations, fire stations. Many of them don't have any resource, but look at the typical military installation like Maxwell Air Force Base. They have a significant amount of huge storage sites, like over at Andrews Air Force Base and down in San Antonio, and with the JBSA, the Joint Base San Antonio. They can probably have power for comms and so on for about maybe 3 days to 7 days. But most hospitals only have 3 days of supplies on hand to treat. And also you have communications and fuel delivery. But here's the whole thing about fuel. Fuel has to be refined. What do you think happens to the refineries during a global medic disturbance or a terrorist attack on the substations like it was over at Metcalf, where they destroyed 17 extra high voltage transformers that supplied Silicon Valley by shooting their synthetic oil tanks that keep it cool. And what do you think happens to the refinery? Well, it stops producing fuel. So you may have fuel for a while, even at the military installations, but eventually it's going to run out. That's MoGas, regular octane fuel, and diesel fuel, any other refined fuel product, oil. So, yeah, the military installations are completely completely supplied by the civilian power grid, and especially for food. Like John Hollerman, another brilliant one that knows survival food very, very well because he was a survival, escape, and resistance an invasion instructor for American Air Force pilots.
Hey, we did a live show with him on this channel about 2 weeks ago, and everybody loved him.
I know. I was just up having lunch with him on Friday up in Western New York, and I had an interview with him with this Patreon. Anyway, he said right now people say, well, we can live on MREs for quite a while. Well, if you took all the MREs we have in the U.S. military, you could probably feed Manhattan for one meal. We don't have that much. The most important element.
If you eat these things over 2 weeks, you'll get sick. The MREs are not meant to be. regular food source. They're just not.
Right. They're about 3,500 calories each. Yeah, my dealing is either in Vietnam, Bosnia, Kuwait, Iraq. You can't eat the whole meal. If you do, you're going to be in a world of hurt, no matter how many calories you burn.
Hey, I like the old sea rats myself. That's another story.
Yeah, sea rats I thought were pretty good, but when I was in Vietnam, I would love to have had some fresh fruits and vegetables, which I went for a year without. When I came home, I was eating onion sandwich with mayonnaise,
Wow.
And rotten teeth. But yeah, that's just the way it is.
So,
But none of my soldiers, I only gave one order out when I was a young, second then first lieutenant back in 1967. And I just gave direct orders. Nobody will mess with my pound cake. There was only one no that, but I didn't smoke and never have. I used to give them my cigarettes out of that. But nobody messed with my pound cake. They would be court-martialed. Yeah. Or on point.
Yep. Okay, so here's go ahead.
No, this is your main premise was what's going to happen not only to the United States but also the world. And they're going to go after, if they undoubtedly, if they were sane at all, which that enemy's not, but yet they're street smart. They're street smart, and they're going to go after. We already know the tip of the spear is downrange with there right now. The tip of the spear is the U.S. military. But what holds the tip? What holds the staff? What holds the spear? That's the defense industrial base. That's the supply chain logistics. That's just-in-time logistics. That's mom and pop out there making insulin. Or no, not mom and pop. Insulin and food and toilet paper. The ever precious toilet paper. And all of that sustains and supports life, both military and civilian. And I'll go over this on a few slides tomorrow, because out of those 95, I'm going to bring it down about 20 that I really want to show people. But people, like right now, people think that they think that the U.S. military will be like cavalry coming over the hill with Ben and Jerry. No, you don't want Ben and Jerry's. They suck. They hate Israel besides. Yeah. You want KFC, blankets, Chick-fil-A, fresh water, and medicine, whatever you need. No, they're not going to be there after about the first couple of weeks. They'll be home with their families where they belong. And I'll go over that tomorrow quite a bit with in other words, if you're going to attack America and really bring it down, or you're attacking Taiwan, you're going to, well, what defenses do we have in cyber? We have none. Even the even Department of Homeland Security, CISA, was hacked themselves. I mean, where are you going to go? The CIA, the White House, the Pentagon, the Supreme Court, Target. Some of the people that may be listening to this conversation right now, they've had their bank accounts compromised. I don't know. CPS or Energy, JBC, Food, Colonial Pipeline. We have no defense. So when I was at the War College teaching back in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, we used to have workshops on cyber warfare. I taught cyber warfare at the Army War College. And you could have the same conference right now, and there's almost the same words would be talked about. There is no defense to cyber, especially both operational cyber, like Mr. Joe Weiss knows so well. You have an internet, IT vulnerabilities, but the operational, the actual pulleys of the string, pulleys and generators and so on, they can be hacked into, as you know, with the Aurora project. And they're completely susceptible. And yet the IT, they're still not talking to one another. They are a little bit more, but if we had a chance, and when I briefed President Trump with David Bellavia, he said, how much to harden the grid? And we said, sir, it's impossible to harden 100% of the grid. Maybe 20, 30, 40, start as slow as you can. Like Ambassador Woolsey said, even if you harden 20% of the grid, so you'll drink warm beer and take cold showers. But at least you'll be alive and producing food. And we said, he wanted a number right away. We only had 10 minutes to talk to him. We said, 50 billion. And he said, that's doable. And with this infrastructure farce of a bill that they're going to pass, or maybe passed already, $78 million is to go to the electric grid. I'll believe it when I see it. It'll probably go to the modern day cylinders and the cash for clunkers type. It'll go right down the drain to some green energy that was just at same energy that was at fault during the 2021 February debacle in Texas, where 260 plus people died because the power grid goes down because of a winter storm. So what do you think the enemy is going to think of this? North Korea, China, Iran, Iran, and other nation states, or even non-nation states like the cartels in Mexico. And then again, something tells me, would China really attack when they're making so much money off of us? So there's questions out there that good intel analysts should, which we don't have, good intel analysts at the national level should be studying and working through, especially because right now China is already establishing their hegemony. That when you got them by the purse strings, their heart and mind soon follow, or whatever else up you can grab, like all I know is what attorney said. Because China's my main worry right now, even more so than Russia. When you talk about what can go wrong in my own country, in our homeland, right at the very beginning of the interview of our discussion right now, and that will affect us.
What I worry about is China using other players to stage things to cover for them, distractions or whatever, because our forces get stretched thin. And as you and I know, we fear that what we might see is an attack on our grid as a preliminary to some other major event. And they might even use somebody else to pull that off. Right. Like this thing with the Metcalf station you mentioned, they could use some terrorist group to take out enough of our big transformer substations that could totally bring down the national grid. As you know, that's been published quite often that there are 9 critical substations if taken down would take down the entire grid. And it's also been published that this was told to the head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that that was the case. And he says, 9? I've already got 20 targeted with sleeper cells. So there are sleeper cells here in the United States. Some of them may be Iranian, there may be Chinese sleeper cells, there may be even the Mexican drug cartel. They took down the power grid of one of the states there in Mexico and went in and wiped out the officials because they had word officials were going to put a military move on them. So they went in and totally annihilated them.
Well, I remember that. That was just mayhem and murder in the streets. But it's been there's one more thing to say. Then I've got to get back with my wife. She got supper all ready for me here, kind of a late one. But I was going to say not the Secretary of Defense. It was the Vice Chief of Staff, the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff with Mark Milley, General Hyten, I should say. Good man. He's very strong towards protecting the EMP. In fact, he was very instrumental in allowing Major Stuckenberg and General Quast to hold the EDTF-2 that we had in at Maxwell Air Force Base. Anyway, right. He stated that there was a war game going on, just recently, of how our forces will fare when China decides to attack Taiwan. And I didn't print out a copy of it. The words I remember, he said, we were breathtakingly and miserably had our asses kicked. And that he said, we lost. And so they had a good red cell, which is really good, a good red cell to say, hey, how are you going to fight my hypersonic weapons and so on? But anyway, and then the admiral in charge of all of the Pacific, the PACOM commander, said the very same words about the very same time. He said, we're going to lose. It's how many Americans hear that? How many Americans read The Hill? How many Americans read books anymore? So this is the kind of medium that you're going to get a hold of people, like the electric grid. That's why I have those 95 slides, which I know is death by PowerPoint. but that's their aim, not for the beautiful people like Dr. Pry, Hank Cooper, George Baker, Dr. Radasky, Michael Mabey. I'm not trying to, I'm preaching to the choir with them. I don't even want them to read it. No, they already know all this stuff. They taught me, and you, but it's for Joe the plumber. It's for the people to read it and incite them to do something about it. How are you going to keep from holding your child who's gut shot because somebody's come in there trying to take your food, and dragging your wife away to appease the militia that's outside your front door? And it's going to happen. And only we can do it by protecting the grid, which is a lot less than $50 billion. We can protect even 30-40% of the grid. Again, with a skate and so on, it's impossible to protect the whole grid. But over time, you probably could. And it's not just an attack from these ragheads and so on, and China and North Korea and so on. The sun is going to attack us someday. That is a given.
Right, absolutely.
It is
If we don't do anything, the sun will take us out. I have people all the time say, well, the government do it. It'll be an inside job. So if that's the truth, the only thing you got to do is nothing. I mean, if you do nothing, absolutely nothing, we're going to go down eventually. And right now, that's what we're doing, absolutely nothing.
And right now, I have a very dear friend of mine. He's almost like a son to me, a young man, and he's got a family, and he knows all of this. And he's an electrician, residential type. He can do anything. And he said, Ken, maybe it's time he just said this a few days ago. He said, things are so screwed up, the worst we've ever been in America. And it is. I was a history major, so I remember that. And American history was my most exciting history, much more than British history or Russian history. But he said, let's just start all over again, go back to 1859 and get back to real living, or get busy living or get busy dying, like Shawshank Redemption. Get busy trying to live, or get busy, you're going to die, because it's not going to be, because everyone's upset about 660,000 people dying of COVID, especially that poor motorcycle guy that got in a motorcycle accident and he died of COVID. Who knew? But you take 650,000 and divide 332 million people into that, it comes to 0.00179. That's right from my favorite physician who was over in Baghdad with me, who owns a clinic in Fort Worth, a retired medical colonel. He said, that's infinitesimal. It's tragic for the people that died from it, but he said, this is not worth taking to the world and pulling it apart. Now, when you lose to even only 10% of the population, that's 3.2 million. That's horrible. Then you lock things down, you shut things down. Well, everything will be locked down anyway. But it's planning. And I even briefed a 2-star admiral from Northcom many years ago from the War College. He was there to give a speech, and we had him on the side. We started talking EMP and the loss of the electric grid. And he said, that's bad juju. Well, somebody else, those are his words, that's bad juju. And I remember, I think I said it, or my friend Bill Waddell, my boss, and he said, so that's not a very intelligent comment. Or that's not the right. And he didn't blow it off, but he smiled. He was very nice. 2 weeks later, he called Bill Waddell and he said, send me everything you've got on this. And we sent him and Bill Murtaugh. We sent people. Well, Bill Murtaugh knew this stuff already. We sent it to the Northcom, which is tied to the hip with, I know Murtaugh briefed this admiral also sometime, when I don't know. But we were excited about this. And I know that precipitated the hardening to E1 of their equipment. And not long after that, I think it was about 4 or 5 months after that, we heard about the Navy that were hardening their ships to E1 pulse. Now that was good news. You feel like you really did accomplish something. But at least they did something. And we're not having that right now. The biggest thing going on for me right now is down in San Antonio, where you got a natural gas company that's really doing something, not unlike the other criminally negligent electric industry that are paying off Senator Murkowski and Senator Fred Upton with close to $1 million a year. Do you think they're going to vote to harden the grid? And me saying that, and Judge Janine said it on nationwide TV, that Fred Upton got $729,000, and he was in charge of the grid or the SIPA Act, Grid Act. He never presented forward for a House vote. Well, she never got sued for slander because it's true. So we are we are in so much trouble right now. Well, plus the fact that any child born today in a hospital is also indebted for $750,000. You know,
$750,000 per child. Ooh-wee.
Yeah, but I'm glad to know my infrastructure money is going to go to for gender studies in Pakistan. You know, can you imagine $34 billion? You know, or $1 million. Well, we're giving about $35 billion every year since 9/11. So what the hell? But
Well,
I look forward to talking with you tomorrow.
Hey, let me ask you a question before we part here.
Yeah.
Imagine this: the grid's down. Our military is struggling on their bases because they don't have power either. They're struggling for food and water and power, just like everyone else. And then while you know, maybe China's pulling an invasion of Taiwan or something's going on, and what's at that point? What at that point is going to keep somebody like these Mexican cartels from coming in and maybe taking possession of Fort Hood? I mean, what do you got for guards at Fort Hood? You got the little gate guards with some pea shooters out there that you know, you'd give Barney Fife to guard the whole military base. Most military base that and the chain link fence is all you got. And the soldiers aren't armed. The soldiers aren't allowed. You're not allowed to carry weapons on base unless you go into the arms rooms. And it takes a while to go in there and get all that stuff. A surprise attack, you'd probably just overrun one of these bases.
Yeah. Well, nothing's. I don't believe they have any plans on the shelf for that. They may have some.
But I'm just thinking that, you know, it might be the grid's down, that they may have a Mexican cartel set up to be a diversion to occupy us here at home so they can pull their hijinks abroad.
Well, that's one of the issues. You know, yeah, it's
speculation, but it's kind of worst case chance. You know, that's one thing I do at work is I have to figure out worst case what could happen. And
well, yeah, always.
when you think about all the weapons that just went to the Taliban, I worry that some of that might find its way back around here for an operation like that.
Oh, I'm sure some will probably, but I really have to go now, Greg. I don't mean to disengage, but
no, that's fine. I appreciate your time. I really appreciate the chat here, and look forward to talking with you tomorrow about the power grid. So everybody, we're going to be back here tomorrow talking about the power grid. I've got an interview I'm going to do with John Cole tonight, which will probably be aired tomorrow, and I will be back on live later tonight, good Lord willing. So Ken, I really appreciate you. You're a patriot. I really appreciate everything you do. You're one of the good guys trying to save this country. I just wish we could wake more people up.
Thank you. I look forward to being with you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. And goodbye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. That's it for tonight. And I hope you enjoyed. And I will be back on. Later tonight, good Lord willing. And I'm also going to do an interview between now and then with Colonel Cole. Well, excuse me, I shouldn't say his last name or anything. I'll do an interview with another gentleman tonight. So thank you, everyone.